What is Transcendentalism? By Erica Meadows. According to the Stanford Dictionary, Transcendentalism is an American literary, political, and philosophical movement of the early 19th century centered around Ralph Waldo Emerson. Transcendentalism basically means trusting your gut and listening to that inner voice inside all of us, not allowing our views to be swayed based upon scientific knowledge. Transcendentalists strive to transcend past what others may think of as the norm and think outside the box in terms of improving society. They created a new movement when they started putting their beliefs into literature and religion. Transcendentalism is not simply one thing or easily explained because it is an entire movement. It deals with religion, philosophy, enlightenment, and spirituality. Transcendentalism first began in New England around 1836 and was brought about because a small group of intellectuals were searching for a different way of thinking other than the Unitarian Church. This way of thinking was centered around finding God in nature and focused on individualism and was a form of rebellion with what was formerly taught in the church. It was also very much centered around the love of literature. German philosophy was another major influence in Transcendentalist way of thinking. German philosopher Immanuel Kant was a major influence on Transcendentalism, where he introduced idealism. Immanuel believes that the mind is in complete control of a person's experience in life. He distinguished between appearance and reality. Americans embraced Kant's way of thinking because of his views on moral actions and the beauty of nature. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson has been called the father of Transcendentalism. His name is synonymous with the movement. Born on May 25, 1803, Ralph Waldo Emerson came from a lineage of ministers and eventually became an ordained minister himself. Emerson studied at Harvard and after graduating went on to marry a woman by the name of Ellen Tucker in 1829. Unfortunately, Tucker died of tuberculosis in 1831, causing Emerson to resign from the church due to his conflicting personal feelings about the church. Afterwards, Emerson submerged himself in philosophy and poetry and essays. He began to publish anonymously under the Transcendentalist Club. This is where he first published Nature, which is about Emerson's journey from being a minister to a new calling. People became attracted to Transcendentalism because of its different way of thinking at the time. It gave people who were spiritually confused or lost a new understanding. Soon, Emerson's informal Transcendentalist Club became more formally known as the magazine The Dial, where he, Margaret Fuller, and Henry David Thoreau began collaborating and publishing poems and essays. His interest in national affairs grew as he became more involved in the abolitionist cause against slavery. Emerson began giving speeches about the issues with slavery. Emerson remained giving speeches and lectures until his memory started to go. He died of pneumonia on April 27, 1882, as a man who became famous for his radical ideas and New Age ideas on life. David Henry Thoreau was born on July 12, 1817, in Concord, Massachusetts. Thoreau was educated at Harvard, and after graduating in 1837, he abruptly switched his first and middle name and began going by Henry David Thoreau, with no real explanation. He taught public school for a brief time, but found himself disgusted with how the children were being punished in the school system, and went to work for his father's pencil company. In 1838, Thoreau opened his own private school with his brother John Thoreau. Students' curriculum focused a lot on nature, and after the school closed in 1841 due to his brother's help, Henry David Thoreau went to move in with Ralph Waldo Emerson and became his handyman around the house. Emerson became a mentor to Thoreau in his writing and his ideas about Transcendentalism. Thoreau began to write more, and the two became very close. Thoreau contributed to the Dial as well. Unlike Emerson, Thoreau followed his ideas more in his daily life. He felt that he should not only talk the talk but walk the walk. In 1844, Thoreau bought some land around Walden Pond and began his journey to be one with nature. Thoreau wanted to live off of the land and dedicate himself solely to his writing. He built a cabin on the land and lived off the land until 1847. During that time, he took a stance against the abolitionist movement against slavery and was also jailed for non-payment of taxes because he thought that was a form of government enslavement. Thoreau's ideas of transcendentalism were more based upon nature and striving for simplicity in material items and embracing what nature gives us and using that to survive. Thoreau strived to feel free and one with nature. He died on May 6, 1862 at the young age of 44. Sarah Margaret Fuller was born on May 23, 1810 in Massachusetts. Her father was a lawyer who worked in Congress. Margaret was an only child until she was 5 years old, so her parents spent a lot of time teaching her how to read and write and learn other languages at a very young age. Margaret fell in love with books and spent most of her childhood reading and writing. She was particularly interested in the Romantic movement and its authors. In 1840, Margaret joined forces with Ralph Waldo Emerson and the others to form the Dial, a transcendentalist journal where she was an editor for 2 years and published many reviews on literature and art during that time period. Through the Dial, Margaret became a familiar name in the transcendentalist movement. Besides being a leader in the movement, Fuller was also famous for speaking out against women's rights, or lack thereof, and abolishing slavery. On July 19, 1850, Margaret Fuller, her husband, and son all died when the ship they were traveling on crashed and sank. Margaret left behind many famous books, such as Summers on the Lake and Women in the 19th Century, and will always be remembered as a transcendentalist pioneer.